I am back home in Philly. Thank God. I just came back home yesterday evening. Let me talk to you all about the CR England experience. I didn't finish it, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. If you're going to go to that CR England school, I kind of had this in the back of my mind, but I still, I like to try things out and see if it works for myself. Do not go out there if you don't have prior knowledge of how semi trucks operate. Granted, you may have your learner's permit to drive to have a CDL, but in order to successfully complete the CDL test, like the actual physical exam, you got to be able to drive on the road, you got to be able to do backing, and you have to identify every single part of that truck for a pre-inspection. If you can't identify every single truck and every single part of that semi truck and tractor, as well as being able to explain the function, you do not pass. Let's just say I purchased my ticket to fly out of there on Wednesday, and 7 days later, I had to take a test in order to actually successfully complete the pre-inspection. As far as all the parts on that truck, only know 15%. My background is, ever since I got out of high school, I've primarily been working in the security industry. It is impossible for me in 10 days to be able to identify each part of that semi truck and tractor. Now, if you worked on cars in the past, maybe you'd be able to cross-reference and pick it up quicker. Or say if you was unsuccessful at another driving school, and you think you probably failed because you wasn't capable of backing up, or you failed the road test or some odd reason, but you have to have some type of prior knowledge. It is impossible for the common man to come off the streets and be able to identify all them parts in 10 days or less. If you're capable of doing that, I don't think you should be driving trucks. Do something even more productive with your life. Become a chemist. Become a lawyer. Become a doctor. Regular shit that your parents want you to do when growing up. But in order for me to be able to identify every part, I told a recruiter just before I left, I said, I will have to study trucks for at least a year or two. Me personally, let me tell you, I studied, in order to get my CDL permit, it took me like 30 days. I downloaded the CDL prep app, and I just kept on doing the questions over and over again. Whatever you missed, they let you know. So it was real easy. I just downloaded CDL prep app. It worked for every state in America. 30 days later, I wasn't even going to take the test until like maybe months later, but my oldest son, shout out to my baby boy, he told me, yo, Dad, you might as well just go take it now. I'm like, all right, cool. I did it, got 100 on each test. But that was the question. That was a multiple choice question test, and that only took me 30 days. But as far as learning every single part in the course, it's a 10-day course. I'm not going to be able to do it. And say if you fail any portion of that test, they give you 48 hours to reschedule and do it again. I'm not doing that in 12 days. That's just impossible. And aside from not actually knowing every part in court in 10 days, let me tell you this. There's no way to properly store your food. There's like 500 people in this prison-style dormitory that you'll be staying in the middle of nowhere, and there's no convenience stores nowhere, so you have to buy a bunch of canned food and dry food. I borderline was getting sick. Years ago, I was told I had high blood pressure. I was able to bring that down later on because of exercising and changing my diet. Me eating Pop-Tarts and canned ravioli, that's not hitting like that. And then you'll go broke immediately if you door dashing yourself food. There is nowhere you can walk. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are the days they do Shuttle runs to Walmart. Outside of that, forget about it. And then they clean out the refrigerator every few days. And there's like 500 people sharing that refrigerator. Everybody's not an honest person. You know somebody's going to warm up your food. And you can't even buy the proper food anyway because you'll be buying frozen dinners, which is full of sodium. So aside from not being able to memorize every function of a truck in 10 days, you're not eating healthy. And then on top of that, there's no stores that you can walk to in the middle of nowhere in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's a beautiful place, but you need a car. So if you want to go that route, here's my advice. I'm not downing them, telling you not to go, but if you're going to do it, know about trucks. And if you're fresh off the street, say, I was there with people that actually worked at McDonald's, worked at retail or this and that. And there's people that drove trucks before in the past that's getting back in the business. And there were guys that worked on the trucks that's converting over from mechanics to now semi-truck drivers. That was their goal. But here's my advice. Know every function of that truck before you go. And put like $12,000 away. You're going to be like, why $12,000? Because every day you're not going to want canned goods. And don't stay in that dormitory. It's nasty. It's nasty. It's a nasty city. It's not like dirty, but it's just, you don't want to, it's bunk beds, right? And you don't want to be dormant with a bunch of dudes. Or if you're a female with a bunch of females in the dormitory on these prison-style bunk beds, you don't want to do that. If you're going to go out there for 10 days, get yourself a rental car, get yourself a nice hotel nearby, and have at least 12 grand in your pocket. You're like, why 12 grand for 10 days? Because here's the thing. If you successfully complete it, they're going to send you out with a mentor, and you're going to start working immediately. They're going to take you somewhere in your home state, not home for a few days. You're going to go to your home state, get your CDL, and you're going to hit the road. And them checks is going to be light. I never made it to the point where I got paychecks, but I seen online on different blog sites and different YouTube vlogs, them checks are light. You're talking about getting like 400, 500, 600. Like, I can't live off of $500 a week. As a grown man, I need to be 1,000 is minimal, but ideal is 1,500 a week. That's living. You're not living in today's society. You are not living off of anything under 1,000. And when you come in the trucking game, what do you expect? You expect to make like 15. You hope to get 1,200 minimum. But you expect to get like 1,500. You're not going to get that for a very long time. And more than likely, you're not going to get that with CR England. So if you're going to do CR England and you like, hey, man, I know trucks and I know what to do. What you want to do is, if you could afford to stay there a year and get them little paychecks, like even when you elevate, there's like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Even when you make it to the point when you're riding in teams or you're riding solo and no longer under the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 training, your checks is going to be light for a while, for a very long time. And if you can afford to do that, make sure you have enough money in your bank account to do that. In order to get a small check like that, you got to be like, 21, 22, still live at home, and you can afford to be with CR England for a year. But if you're a grown man with responsibility, what's in your best interest to do, stay there for like 3 months, 6 months, then go to JB Hunt. You know, the big boys that actually pay real good bread. And what they're going to do more than likely, they'll probably pay off the contract, because after you get your CDL, and if you dip in less than a year, you're going to owe like $5 grand. But if you dip and you branch off to get your own trucking company, or you go to a competitor, they got a non-compete clause. So if you're actually still working in a business after you getting your CDL, you owe $5 grand plus that 2 G's. But If you stay there for an entire year, you don't owe nothing. You don't owe nothing. You could just leave clean slate. But that's if you can afford to make 400 or 500. Most people there got kids, families, children, moms, grandmoms. They got people got grown people responsibility. Like the average age, everybody around me was like 35 and up. It wasn't too many young bulls up in there. But if you're a young kid, you're a young girl, young boy, and you just starting off life, sure, and you still live home with your mom and dad, stay there for a full year. But if you're a grown man with responsibilities, do not go out there with less than 12 grand in your pocket. Go out there with 12 grand in your pocket, get you a rental car, get you a nice hotel, or one of them hotels like the extended stay forget a hotel. Get yourself an Airbnb. Get yourself an Airbnb so you can go out there and cook properly for yourself. How in the world do they got people in the starting off in the trucking business and they ain't got no stoves? They don't got no ovens in their dormitory. You need that. You need that. Because check this out, right? In order to drive trucking, your health got to be up to par. You know you got to get an exam every 2 years. So running around eating canned goods, that's not going to do it. So don't do that dormitory because you won't have the proper nutrition in you. And then you're not getting paid while you're there at the same time. I had to go back home. I said, listen, I had to keep it real with myself. I left there after being there for a little under a week. I said, I'm not going to get this by next week. No, every part of the truck and how it functions. If I had that capability, I'll be a freaking lawyer, a judge, a doctor right now, like something, a psychiatrist. That's what I would do. If I had that type of mental capability to be able to pick up on something that quick. If I had that type of memory. I have a good memory, but not that damn good. So don't go out there without less than 12 grand in your pocket. Don't stay in that dorm. Get yourself a rental car and an Airbnb and stay out there for the next 10 days or so. And mind you, when you do that, you're going to be forced to ride in teams temporarily. So my advice to you is, like I said, 12 grand in a rental car. Don't go out there with less than 12 grand in a rental car and get yourself an Airbnb. Don't stay in that nasty dormitory. And then when I was ready to fly home, I said, hey, listen, can somebody give me a ride to the airport? And I called up the security desk. They said, well, if you see somebody back there, they'd be more than happy to take you to the Greyhound. I'm not going Greyhound. I'm going to the airport. Let me tell you, there's no way in the world I was going all the way from Philly to Salt Lake via Greyhound or Greyhound from Salt Lake back to Philly. No way, no how. Only had a couple dollars to my name and it was getting scarce. It was getting scarce. And I bought mad food too, like mad canned good, Pop-Tarts and stuff like that. And there was this one guy that went out there. He was from PA as well, from like Harrisburg. I didn't want to tell people what I was doing because I don't like people being in my business all like that. But I wish I was able to give my food to him because he told me he only had like $30 in his pocket. I felt bad for the guy. And but what I did was I left like my food for my dorm mates, whatever. But my dorm mates were kind of like up. The one dude, he was from Georgia. He had a lawsuit that he sued this chemical plant that he worked at. And on top of that, he fresh off of making mad money with that chemical plant. So he had bread. And the other dude, he was from like Oregon. Though he ain't had no job or anything. But his parents were retired and they were well-to-do. He was like in his 40s. He got kids and all that. But he said his parents is up. So his parents was holding him down. So I guess the majority of my food that I left with him, I guess he could stay out of his parents' pockets for a little bit. But there was a lot of people that was up there hurting. They were hurting. But when I left, I ain't want nobody in my business. I left like class starts at 6 a.m. I started packing around 6 o'clock while everybody was in class, and I just took my flight. So it is what it is, man. But I'm not down talking them. I'm like, hey, they do what they supposed to do. In 10 days, they get you your CDL. But you're going to be broke for a long time messing around with them. So unless you, in real life, in my personal opinion, unless you got 25K in your account and you can afford to get paid less than $1,000 for a year, do it. But if you can't afford it, and you working at McDonald's or Walgreens or whatever you're doing Uber or working at Amazon, save up 12 grand, stay with them for like a few months and go to one of the big boys that's willing to pay out your contract. And that's what you do. Peace.